What is up? Welcome back to another video. It is Monday, February 10th, and we have just a lot of news to get into. So, before we do that though, you know how it goes. Quick shout out to the members of the channel, the Bronco Buddies, whose lovely names are listed around me here. Remember, if you join the channel, not only do you support me, the work that I do here, but you also get access to exclusive content, early access to other content, and the ability to vote on upcoming reviews. So feel free to join the channel to cash in on some of those perks. I appreciate it a bunch. If you can't do so, completely fine. Just like the video if you enjoy it, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future content as well. All of that support helps. Let's crack into the news. I'll do good news, bad news, good news. That way the bad news is kind of sandwiched in there and we can end on an uplifting note. The smaller of all of the stories. I reached out a few weeks ago to Reflx Lab just to kind of get some more information on their upcoming projects. They got back to me last week sometime with a pretty boilerplate note that they can't really disclose too much at the time. They're going to be releasing more information in the near future regarding upcoming dates, deadlines of when things are coming out, so on and so forth. So they have nothing to share on that front. But the interesting nugget they included was that they are going to try to do everything in-house. So I had speculated, as well as some others had speculated, that they might be trying to team up with Lucky or team up with Yes! Or something like that to work on those film projects. But it sounds like they're trying to keep everything in-house. So that's very, very interesting, because then at that stage we're looking at three relatively separate companies. Four actually, because I always forget about Shanghai. Four companies in China: Shanghai, Yes! Lucky, and Reflx Lab, all producing film. I think that's all of them. There might be another one, but as far as I know, four different companies there, all producing different films, which is really fascinating. And I guess Reflx respools, but I'll count it, so there's five. I think just five. There might be others. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Five different companies in China selling some kind of film product. That's pretty impressive. Speaking of concrete release schedules, Lucky has released information and then also started a new Instagram, I believe, for their Lucky color film project. They have a few posts out just kind of reaffirming and confirming that they are looking to push their color film in a few months, practically. I'm glad to see that they're able to maintain their deadline after they kind of pushed it back. Kind of going to the summer months, people are going to be shooting film more, at least here. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays into their success. I'm excited for it though. I'm looking forward to it. I've had a lot of people reach out to me, also very excited about it. So I think overall it's going to be a good time. I will kind of keep my ear to the ground as to harder dates when it's coming out, but for now, that's kind of what we have before summer pretty much, which is good stuff. You could call it bad news category, but not really. I think it's more insightful and interesting than anything else, but Reflx Labs released a blog post, and talk about underrated, but Reflx Labs has a blog post section on their website, and it's where they confirmed information regarding the Lucky film. They also talked about the Smart Flex a few weeks ago, and now they're dropping this, which is just a very informative piece. They wrote it February 3rd, so it's a little bit older, but not really a week ago. Anyway, it's titled The Case for Respooled Film, and they kind of give their insight into the market, which is very important because they are one of the more prominent companies that's been respooling remjet removed cine film. And the article kind of gets into it a lot. It talks about the history of respooling, recanning film, why it's very important, not only from just a point of diversifying the market, but also because Reflx Labs does what a lot of other companies don't do, except for Film Photography Project, which is they cut their film into 127 and they respool it there. They also have made 220 film, which not a lot of people shoot, because I think Reflx Labs and maybe Film Photography Project are the only companies that produce 220 film. So seeing them like kind of defend themselves a little bit and try to push back against the narrative that Kodak is kind of pushing by saying that respooling film undercuts their business and that these companies that were respooling film was affecting how people viewed their products. Fairly reasonable concerns to have. I think that if you're going to, on one hand, say we're not doing this anymore, but then on the other hand still allow CineStill to work, I think effectively what you're doing is what everyone else has said to this point, which is enabling a monopoly over the industry, which is, you know, that's what this industry is now, but it is still a little bit disheartening. And I do think that there was a lot of companies that were popping up and just slapping their logo on something and then upcharging it out the ears just because we got a cool logo, whatever. Like that I had some issues with, but companies like Reflx Labs, which were selling it for such a discounted rate in comparison to something like CineStill, I think that they're delivering the same quality product for a much lesser price. And then beyond that, anytime I've gotten reflex film, the way it's packaged, the metal canister that's used, like all these little elements just leave this really premium experience that you don't really get with the other companies. They go on to answer some questions at the bottom, which is, will the film still be available? And they're basically citing what they said to me in the email, which is, for as long as we can make it available, we will. We're not going to raise the price if we don't have to. Reflx Lab will stay around because they do have other products that they're selling, which is very important. And there are some other companies that they are going to try to respool film from somewhere like that. They cite specifically FOMA, Lucky, and Orwo. Then they also address kind of the silent elephant in the room, which is, who do you think is behind this crackdown, Kodak or Olympus? And they basically state what I've said, is that they think both are behind it. Well, there was a very coincidental intersection between Olympus being purchased by the private equity firm and the public outcry of all of the crackdowns really affecting people. The crackdown has actually been going on since early 2024, months before the reacquisition by Kingswood Capital, I think it was. So while it might have lended a hand to some minor degree, it's really hard to say. And like I said, this was something they cite here as it's been going on for a while before that. So they're not really trying to point any fingers. I think, like I said, this is just more of a defense against themselves, against their business practice. And while on some hand, I do agree that like some of these were a little shady, some of these were a little bit more expensive than they needed to be, I have a hard time looking at Reflx Lab as anything other than trying to do a good thing, trying to provide in this market. So it's kind of a bummer. It's a little bit of bad news, but it's also kind of interesting and insightful. The final thing they talk about is Aerocolor, which is kind of more popular now. We have companies like Carmere, Flick Film with the Electra 100. Reflx Labs has it as well. There's a bunch of other companies that are popping up with 100 speed color film. It's pretty much all Aerocolor, which so far as I understand is just like aerial surveillance film that's been recanned and stuff. It belongs to a different Kodak department, so it's a little bit of a loophole at the moment, but they suspect that that might be closed up soon, so they're going to sell it while they can, but again, who knows how long that's going to be. So again, very interesting insight here, really worth reading. I will link it down below if you want to check it out. Then finally, we have big news from OM System, which is the company previously known as Olympus. Olympus critique real quick. I kind of dog on Olympus a lot. I really do like their cameras. It's just, they're a little bit like, it's almost like they're allergic to coming up with new names, okay? Because like here we have the OM-3, which is not the OM-3. This is an OM-3. It's like the same thing with Canon and their F1. Like they had the F1, okay, cool. F1N, okay, F1 new. What? I honestly, to this day, I know I've seen all three of the different F1s. I know the differences between all of them, but if somebody was to put a gun to my head and be like, what's the new F1? What's the F1N? Which one is, I wouldn't be able to, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. It's just like this melee. But that's what I'm saying. I don't know. And with the Olympus stuff, they have like the OM1. Great name. Well, first of all, it was the M1, which is cool. Then they couldn't do that because of Leica. So they're like, okay, OM1. Fantastic. OM2. Makes sense. OM3. Got it. Seeing the progression. OM10. What? Huh? Okay, that's fine. And then we've got the pens, and we've got the pen, the pen EE, the pen EES, the pen EED, the pen EE2, the pen EED. Like, just come up with a new name. Come up with a new name. Come up with a new name. Because then we also have the Olympus digital pens. Now we have the Olympus OM-1D, which is the digital camera, and we've got the Olympus OM-1 Mark D. What are we doing here? People are not going to be happy about that. I guarantee it. People get really bent out of shape when I badmouth Olympus. But I think Olympus is great, and this camera that they're coming out with is also great. It's film adjacent because it's doing the same thing that the Fuji is, which is having creative filters or whatever, adjustable color, monochrome profiles, color creator, and more. So you can do a lot of different things with the color. It also has a very similar style, similar aesthetic style to the older Olympus cameras, such as the OM-3. It basically looks like a carbon copy of it, except without the advanced lever. Basically 20.4 megapixel resolution. There is IP53 weather sealing, which is fantastic. ISO up to 102,400. Really compact as well once you get a lens on there, like it's going to be really small. And it is cool to see companies shifting into this lane of being more proud of their heritage and embracing that and trying to release products that are in line with the current trends of creative film photography and exploration of the different things. On the front you have the wheel, which is like almost exactly where the self-timer dial would go, which I think is pretty great. So you get the body, it's $2,000, and then for the OM-3 with the 12 to 45 millimeter f4 is 2,300 thereabouts. I do think it's a micro four thirds sensor. People are pretty hyped up about it. I know a lot of people got them to test them out. So there's lots of reviews out there. I definitely recommend you check it out if this is something you're interested in. I just kind of wish that they would change up their names sometimes, you know, like there's already an OM-3. Why do we have now two OM-3s? It doesn't matter. It's all good. It just, you know, Olympus is back. Very exciting. Reflx Lab coming out with stuff soon. Lucky Color Film is on the way. Reflx Labs is closing up at some point in the near future, at least their film sales side. So if you want to get your hands on that, I will link that down below so you can check that out. I would really encourage you to read the blog post, because if you're listening to me talk about it, like, why does any of this matter? Give it a quick read. It's worthwhile. Overall, it's just a very interesting time that we're living in the film photography space. And it's always interesting to get these other perspectives from these other companies. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today's news video. Not a whole lot to talk about. A little bit of an Olympus rant there, but it's okay because I'll have an Olympus review out soon that is strictly positive. So stay tuned for that. Remember, like the video if you enjoy it, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future content. Join the channel if you can. I do appreciate that support a whole lot. If not, completely fine. Thank you so very much for watching. Appreciate it as always. And I will catch you next week when we have more news.